Through Adversity is sponsored by MVS Autos, keeping you on the road. MVS Autos offer a range of vehicle services including MOT, servicing, repairs, welding, diagnostics, aircon and much more. Based in Wormley, serving all of Bristol and surrounding areas. For 10% discount, quote tap MVS when booking. Okay, so welcome to Through Adversity. I have my first guest with me, Mr. Chris Nott, and there is a phrase which I think is quite fitting for Chris, and it is beware of an old man in a profession where men usually die young. Chris, welcome to Through Adversity.
Rich. Nice to speak to you.
No worries, mate. I mean, we actually recorded this originally in the car about 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, I remember sitting in the car with you very early one Sunday morning. Yeah.
It was. I think it was March or April 2022, and then everything went a little bit Pete-tong from my end, and we didn't. It's still sat in an archive recorded somewhere. So, 2.5 years later, we're now on a studio on Riverside FM, and we're going to give it a go. And all I want to say as well is thank you to my sponsor, Rich from MVS Autos, and I'm going to do a little ad for him at the end. And he's the one who's making this possible for us. So, Chris, you've had what I would call is a pretty versatile life regarding any level of security. And the quote that I mentioned just now, as it is quite fitting for yourself. So I want to go back a little bit further than the police. So growing up, when were you born, mate?
It all started on Friday the 13th of October, 1950, which explains absolutely everything. Because if you've looked at all the legends of Friday the 13th, none of them are particularly good. So that's I blame my birth date.
So was that the actual date that you were due, or did you decide to sneak out on the 13th?
On that day.
God. So you decided to be born on Friday the 13th, the unlucky day. So childhood, how was that?
Yeah, I was, first 4 or 5 years, we went to Canada when I was about 6 months old. Father found work out there. And after about 4 or 5 years, as I recall, the weather was so bad he couldn't work anymore. So we came scuttling back to England.
So do you know whereabouts in Canada you were? Any idea, or were you too young at that stage?
It was a nickel.
Yeah.
Father worked in the Inco, the nickel mine there. Apparently it's changed beyond recognition now. I can remember it as a child. I got vague memories of clapperboard houses and dirt streets, but I think it's a proper bustling metropolis now.
Yeah, I think they've invented tarmac since you were there, Chris.
I can remember.
Moving on a bit.
The snow piled up past the windows, and in the summer it being extremely hot. And that's about all.
I can concur, because when we did our exercise out there, many of them with the army, we used to do called Medicine Hat, and it's called Medmans. One of the ones we did, which was the back end of the year, and you could literally wake up in the morning with your DOS bag covered in snow, and in the afternoon you'd be literally sunbathing. It was that diverse with the weather in such a short space of time, especially out on the prairie where you're so exposed. But it's beautiful. Did you ever get to see the Northern Lights? Do you recall seeing?
I think I did. When the night my brother was born out there. I can remember laying in the truck when my father drove my mother to the hospital, and looking up and seeing a pink sky. And that's as much as I can recall, and some sparkling stars. That's about the only memories I've got of Canada.
Yeah. My memories of Canada are somewhat, how can I put it, hazy from the amount of Labatt's lager that we used to drink when we come off the prairie. So, Chris, moving forward some years now, you're obviously a Bristol man, aren't you?
Excuse me, I was born in the city of Bath. Yeah.
Oh, Bath. What's the correct way to pronounce Bath?
Depends where you're from. Bath. Bath is the old-fashioned way, I guess. Is Bath. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're from Bristol, spelled B-A-F-F, isn't it?
Yeah. Brizzle. Yeah. I grew up in Bath. I was a sporty lad. Got into martial arts. rugby. Swimming was my main sport, but I was also doing judo and boxing and everything. In fact, I did really well at swimming. I got to the national championships as a freestyle swimmer in the under 15.
Oh wow, that's good go. What was your preferred
Yeah,
stroke?
so I was a pretty fit lad all round, and then at the age of 15, I discovered girls, I guess, and going out on the town.
Yeah.
So I was with a bunch of lads, and we just do what most lads of that age did: go out on a Friday, Saturday night, have a few drinks, and then get up to mischief. But before that, the reason why I didn't take any GCEs as they were at the time, my father decided that the grass was greener elsewhere, so he decided to go off and do his own thing. So at the age of 15, I thought, right, I got to get some work, and I managed to find a job through a relative in the Ministry of Defence in Bath.
Okay, so into the MOD at an early age. So what was that involved? Are you allowed to tell us?
Chris. Yeah, I was in the Ministry of Supply, and
I used to be in the Ministry of Supply, but it's a quite different kind.
The reason I was so keen on being in the Ministry of Defence was the fact that I was an avid reader then of Ian Fleming books, and I devoured all the James Bond books.
Oh.
And I saw that Commander Bond was a naval officer, and I was in the Director of Armament Supply for the Naval Department in Bath, as it was then. So I thought, yeah, join that. That'll be good. Martini, shaken, not stirred. Fast cars, loose women. I mean, nice ladies. I thought that's the life for me.
Loose cars and fast women.
It didn't quite work out. Because my job, it was inactive, sat at a desk, filing messages from ships around the world in chronological order. So,
and that's back. So if you can explain that, because people listening to things like Podcast Easy will look at a computer and it does it all for them.
No computers. No,
it's not that, is it?
Card indexed, or it was like I say, it was just bits of paper that I got handed, so I had to put. I remember sticking them in a loose leaf folder for that day, and then making it up for a week, and that was my job basically. Which was why at weekends, out with the lads on a Friday night, having a few drinks, getting into scrapes, and having a generally good time.
So during that time, what sort of steered you towards the police force? I'm guessing that's the direction you're going in.
That was a little bit off. A little bit of a, how can I say, a bit of a tangent, I guess. I was still actively involved with the swimming club, and there was one particular person there, Graham Cutting, who was a policeman in Bristol. He had no doubt been tipped off, or he told me he'd been tipped the wink by a couple of local Bath coppers that I was getting in with a bit of a bad crowd, and a little bit of advice would come in handy. So he pulled me aside one night and said, "Here, if you carry on the way you're going, you could see the inside of a of a police cell." And it brought me up short because a couple of my mates that I've been knocking around with had got themselves arrested, and just for stupid stuff, being drunk and disorderly and stuff like that. So it made me think hard. By then, I'd had a steady girlfriend, and I was looking at being a bit more sensible. But it was the police. They were the enemy. I didn't want to join the police. But
what age were you then, Chris? How old were you at that stage?
Oh,
how old were you at that stage?
16. I've been going in pubs since I was 14.
Oh, wow. Young.
Anyway, Graham told me about the police cadets, and the way he described it, it sounded like, well, it was military. It was run on the lines of military without leaving home. So I thought I'd give it a go. And yeah, it was great. We did drill, we did circuit training, cross-country running, the only thing we didn't do was use weapons. Oh, we did actually. We had an air gun club, but yeah, it was all good adventure training out on the hills in Exmoor and Dartmoor and places like that, and I loved it. And then as I approached 19, I remember this sergeant Bob Carpenter, who was a former Army commando, pulled me aside and said, "Here, are you going to stay with us or are you going?" I said, "Well," he said, "look, you don't have to join the police proper, but there's a job for you." And, and at the time there's a job, there's a house, because there was police housing provided. And I was thinking about, well, I think I was already engaged. Yeah, I was engaged by then. So that's what we did. Joined the constabulary. It was.
So was that in Bristol?
Yeah.
So how was your police career then? So if I could let people know who are listening that this is back in the early 70s, the year I was born. So back in the 60s. Now, policing back then was a very different animal, wasn't it?
Yeah. On reflection, I did my probation on an estate in Bristol. Am I allowed to name it? Yeah, Southmead Estate.
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, far away.
And
Southmead, yeah,
the
Southmead
majority
Estate,
of people there are fine, but they did have a certain element of people who came into our contact frequently. And I'll never forget, I realized very quickly that I was getting a police probation report, mentoring, and also a community mentoring. Because I can remember, like, my mentor was a guy called Terry Rogers, and basically he had to show me the ropes, tell me what to do, and see me through my probation. And I remember one particular day, he said, "We're going to go and meet somebody," and I won't name him, but anyway, he ran a little car repair business and apparently a lot of stolen gear would go through there. But I was introduced to this individual, and his first words were, well, after he's offered us a cup of tea, he said to Terry, "How's he shaping up then, Ter?" And Terry said, "Yeah, he's looking good. He'll be all right." And he then turned to me and said, "Look, this is the way it is here, mate. Anything happens on the estate, I deals with it, all right? If they're out of the estate, they're yours." And that's how it worked.
So it's sort of like home police then, basically.
And it was rough and ready. And I can remember, like, the very first night shift. We were all stood outside the Pegasus pub. The Peggy, seeing the pubs out. And I said, "Why do we do this?" "Well, we do." So I said, "Well, what do you mean? What do we do?" And so Terry said, "Well, the first one that comes out who gets loud and leery, just tell him to fuck off." I said, "Right.
Yeah.
Well, what if he don't?" He said, "Then you make him." So we're stood outside. Out they come, all jeering and shouting, and he said, "Give me a nudge." And so he sort of indicated one of the biggest, loudest ones. So I walked over and I sort of dropped my chin and said, "Fuck off." And he went, he looked at me and he went, "You mean it, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, now go." "Oh, all right then." And off he went. I thought, "Oh, that was good."
And that was
the trouble was, it didn't work out like that every night.
No, that's the trouble, isn't it? What, so sooner or later, someone is going to try and put it on you, aren't they?
The way it was in those days, it was rough and ready, knockabout, and if somebody whacked you, you'd whack them back, and if you got the better of them, you say, "Right, this is the way it is. Either you fucking behave or you're going to get nicked." "Oh, all right, fair enough, mate." And that was it.
Yeah. Did you find that time in that era it worked?
Yeah.
That's how it was?
I again, just very quickly, coming from Bath, it was all a bit of an eye-opener.
Well, you don't get rough estates in Bath, do you? Bath's just nice.
License at Southmead. And bear in mind, this is January 1970. It was there was a recess. The display came out, and it was recessed door, but all the inner glass viewing area was wire meshed. So you had to point, you had to go to the hatch at the end, point to what you wanted. They'd go and get it, slide it out through you'd slide the cash in, they'd slide the drink out. And that's how it was up there.
Yeah, but you know what? It didn't change. It didn't change much. I remember going back, I think around about 1996. A friend of mine was coming out of the army, and he's going to move to Bristol from Devon, beautiful part of the world. And I thought, and he's moving into the Sea Mills area, and I've just picked him up and I've taken him for a drive, and we drive through Southmead. Got the main shops, haven't you? By the just down from the Peggy, actually. That's it. So we're parked up there. I think we're just went to go to a newsagent, and a load of kids, and I'm talking kids, 11, 12-year-olds, steamed into a grown-up. About 14 of them with sticks, beat the crap out of him. And my mate looked at me and said, "What am I doing?" So, welcome to Bristol, mate.
Yeah.
This is Southmead. And that was it. Absolutely nuts. So tell me, there's a particular thing in one of your books which you mention about this particular part of the town, and it's the Battle of Ridley Road. Did you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, that was well, it's just one of those things that happened, you know. It was about 4:00 in the afternoon. I turned into Ridley Road. I was driving the old police Pandas, the Morris Thousands, and I look in front of me. There's about a melee, about 200 people out in the street. So I put the handbrake on, get out, slam the door, lock it. You don't have clicks, you have to turn it, because you always lock your cars out there. And sort of elbow my way through the crowd, where I could see some of the estate elders who I knew, and they knew me. And I realized very quickly that two families were about to have a little bit of a set to, because different families ruled different parts of the estate, and obviously there had been a bit of toes stepped on, and there was, they were all, there must have been about 10, 20 aside, and they were all going to have a set to, and they were in the prelims, if you like, throwing the insult.
Can I ask you a quick question about that, Chris? Back in those days, these set tos, was drugs a problem back then, or was it kind of other stuff?
But they were still, one of the individuals was eventually convicted. He did a lot of time for importing certain substances. Yeah. No.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just curious.
Infancy. Anyway, I quickly realised, the elders said, "You ain't going to stop this." I said, "I can't have a bleeding riot going on." And then I thought, well, if I call for help, 1, 2, 3, 6 officers maybe in the immediate future. In that time, I could get ripped to pieces. So I said to the elders, "How are we going to bloody stop this? Got to do something." And I came up with the idea of the best man from each family step forward, and I'd referee it. And that's what I did. I refereed the brief encounter.
Talk us through your emotions at that time, if you can remember. What were you actually feeling? Apart from fucking terrified.
Yeah, but there was also a certain exhilaration.
There is. But you don't feel that until you left, do you? Until it's over. That's called relief.
I was... fear. Yeah, it was fear. Of course it was. You only would lie if you say it's not fear. I was shitting myself, to be blunt. And anyway, I remember standing with the two of them, holding them apart because they were ready to rip each other's faces off, and they were trying to get my hands off their chest. I said, "Nobody's going to die here today, right? I don't suppose you want to shake hands." And they went straight into it, and there was a flurry of blows, and one individual headbutted the other, and down he went, and knocked him out cold. The two families came in, took their boys away. The victorious family went up to the Pegasus to celebrate. The victim or the loser was then taken to Southmead Hospital, which was very far away.
just up the road.
Yeah,
Dead handy. Do you think that's why they made Southman
I
Hospital there?
returned to
Because
my
it's
car to
close.
find the windows smashed and everything stolen out, including my bloody
Oh
police hat.
no!
Yeah.
Did they take your hat? Yeah, but I guess that's the worst, the best of what could have happened, isn't it?
You
Best
have
of
to
the
think on
worst.
your feet. I could have, if I tried to be calling for help and getting troops up there, it would have gone. It would have gone. Well, there'd already been riots.
Yeah.
This is, there'd already been riots in mini riots in Bristol, and well, then there was bigger ones later on. So yeah.
Yeah. So you made the
Oh
right
yeah,
decision
because
at the time,
after
didn't
that,
you?
everybody disappeared. It's like nothing had happened. And like I can remember looking at my car, flicking the bits of broken glass away, and then looking round, and it was just like nothing had happened.
Did that elevate you in their eyes? Make you look like this guy's all
Uh,
right? Even though they'd done your car, did they
well,
still look at you differently? Or think
I was
had they wished
already
you weren't
pretty
there?
well known on the estate because I remember I started doing some weight training with some of the kids up there. So some of them knew me and they thought I was okay-ish. Yeah, you
All
got
right
it.
for a copper.
Yeah.
He's all right for the filth. So how long did your police career last? How long was that going on
26
for?
years, and then a long story compressed. I got to the best job that I had in the police force. I was involved in operational training and actual operations. Um, anyway,
So what does that involve, Chris?
that was
Operational training.
like
What's
public
that
order
involve?
riots, stealing and stuff like that, and personal
Okay.
safety, and use of batons, that kind of thing. Um, anyway, one day I was going to a training event in Yeovil Police Station. I was in my own car. I drove in, and in the yard, I looked up and I could see no entry sign. I thought, well, Christ, that wasn't there when I came here about 3 years ago. So I'm stopping, I'm looking. Next thing I knew, bang, in the back of me, a police car collided. Low level, but of course,
Yeah.
had a prick in the neck. Didn't think anything of it, carried on. Anyway, that all got sorted out. It showed on the video the officer dropped his handset. I was searching for it on the floor when he collided with me, but it was all sorted out because it wasn't on the public road, so it was when the
Yeah.
no going to court or anything, just sorting out. Yeah.
Handled internally.
Anyway, a few months later, I'm still, I had neck aches from this collision. I went to the doctors, had X-ray, and they said you got a broken neck.
No, what actually? You broke your neck. So it's a low-end collision, but your neck must have caught you awkwardly
I was
then,
at
or
an
you
angle
were
like that,
maybe very
and
relaxed at the time, stiff.
C3 spine. What had happened was a little sliver in the compression, a sliver of bone had migrated away into the ligaments in the
Yeah.
side of my neck, which gave me headaches, neck aches. It
Yeah.
means I got a bit of difficulty turning that way. I'm okay turning that way. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'm in operational training. I was due to go on a self-defense refresher course up in Harrogate, and I got the news. So I remember sort of laughing and joking. Hey, guess what? I got a broken neck. But it's all right, and they said it's stable, and, that's it. Next thing I knew, I was sat in front of the police surgeon, and they were talking vicarious liability. You've got to get out.
So that was it. They medically
They
discharged
kicked
as
me
such.
out. I've got to admit, money was on the table, so I took it and went. The only problem is,
Well, if they're going to get a decent payout, yeah, I
about
guess
that
so.
time, I was involved in training nightclub door supervisors. It was before it got licensed, but they were trying to. There's been all the trouble up in Liverpool and Manchester and over in Essex and places like that, and they were trying to get it.
So this is pre-97?
Well,
Is it
this
pre-97 we're saying?
was early 90s.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was involved with a local chap called Martin Jones, who ran the biggest door agency in Bristol, and we were involved in training door supervisors for local, it wasn't even licenses then, but just local badges. But now it says it's national scheme. And
Used to be the black badge,
right.
didn't it, with the white writing?
Yeah, that's it. You got
Door
it.
safe.
Yeah.
Was it door
Yeah.
safe? Yeah, because I was there. I was
were.
looking at
Yeah.
the door safe when I come out of the army when you were doing it.
Anyway, so I'm out free. I've seen all the consultants. They said, "Yep, your neck's it's stable. Yeah, go and live your life." So I start looking for a proper job. The trouble is,
What's that then?
after they've asked you your name and address and a few things about you, what's the most important question they ask? Medical
Medical?
history. Well, actually, I've got a broken neck. Oh,
Yeah.
and again, vicarious liability. I couldn't get a proper job. So as I've been involved in
Oh,
door
so nobody will
supervisors
take you on.
training, I went self-employed, working as a doorman. I was also running door supervision training as well, and so I had a combination running training courses and actually working the door from as far away as Liverpool down to Cornwall.
So what's the most? What would you say is the worst and the best doors you've been on?
Worst and best. That's hard to say. I can give you a couple of instances of how they vary. Right.
Yeah, go
There's straightforward doors on pubs and clubs and all the rest of it. But when I was up in Liverpool, invariably I'd be got there for 2 or 3 days at a time, and they were a funny lot. The Scousers have me in stitches every time, and invariably at the end of the course or at the end of the day, one of them, it's going to say, "Here, mate, what are you doing tonight?" I'd say, "Well, nothing." "Well, you fancy earning a few extra quid?" So I could go and do a bit of door, extra door work, or they'd say, "Come and have a look at my boys, see what you think." So I do a little bit in the evenings as well, and it was that was interesting. And there was all sorts going on up there at the time. I remember getting pulled in by the armed police up there one night, driving through Croxteth.
What was that for?
And I was aware of this car, if you like, dogging me. And next thing I know, blue lights and armed police surrounded the vehicle in front and me. So hands on the steering wheel. And anyway, long story short, they were after the guy in front, and they thought I might be the Bristol connection.
Oh, right. Okay. God. So there's a show out, isn't there? There was a thing back in, I think it was 97.
Oh yeah,
called
99
Muscle.
That was.
And
yeah.
It's 99 was it? Okay. So tell us about.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Battlebus.
That was fun. That was interesting. Well, that was just us going around doing what we did, backing up our door staff. We were administration, really. We'd take out their wages and welfare checks, make sure they're behaving themselves, any problems. But invariably, what we became most notorious for was turning up to help out if things got a bit out of hand.
Like a QRF, wouldn't it? Quick
we had
Reaction
a few
Force.
Interesting times.
Well, there's that one on King Street. If anybody wants to see this, if they type into YouTube, I think that the search pattern is type in Ronnie Butler Muscle. I think that finds the video. So it was 3 or 4 parts, the series.
6 parts.
It ran a few weeks, didn't it? Back in night. Yeah, so it's quite interesting, and you can see you there. You're a younger version of you in there after this massive tear up on King Street.
Supposed to say just as well, the police didn't get all of the videos.
Yeah, so were you doing was that a sort of fairly quick transition from the police force into door work and security? Is that the kind of the way that it went?
I left the police on November the 16th, 1995. And I was that weekend working on the doors. And
so 95 was a big year. That's the year I left the army.
And it was obvious the police viewed me with a lot of suspicion. I remember one particular night, I was on a door in Baldwin Street, and we had a couple of drug dealers turn up, and we were advising them that it's best not to try and ply their trade in our club, and that he should go away nicely. And
It
I
wasn't
was
me, was
aware of
it?
a police car driving by, slowing down, and the driver looking out. I don't know who he
Yeah,
was. And that was it. Anyway, if he'd hung around, he'd seen us kick their asses up the street.
yeah,
Anyway, a few days
yeah.
later, I get a call from a friend of mine who was senior detective. Have a coffee. So we sat down having a chat, and he said, "You were seen in deep conversation with these two brothers. What's going on? You know, the rumors going around you've gone rogue." And I said, and then I was trying to explain, well, if you'd hung around, you'd have seen us kick our asses up the road. But yeah, so I was viewed with quite a bit
Yeah.
of suspicion at the time.
So because back then, before the SIA really came into force, the doormen were just seen as thugs, weren't they? And let's face it, when I was doing a door, it pretty much was that. But the majority of the time, there were a lot of people who were on the door who were party
Oh
to the
yeah,
supply of drugs in the industry, weren't they? Not every door,
yeah,
but certain
yeah.
doors.
Well,
I mean, we
this
would have
was
all known the
this was the
ones.
thing. Martin, who I worked for, and the rest of the team, we were all family men, and we were all anti-drugs. And I don't know if you remember Leah Betts.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's what
It
kicked the
was
whole thing in
that
Essex,
was
wasn't it? With
yeah
the
the foot
with
yeah well they're glorified as the foot soldiers and all the
the
rest of
foot
it. The
soldier films.
Essex boys. In fact, we
Yeah,
had a little encroachment from them at one point. Um, oh yeah,
oh, did you? What
yeah,
was that up in Bristol or?
yeah. One individual from that party made some little inroads. Well, I didn't make inroads. He made some
Yeah,
gentle inquiries, as it were. But no,
yeah,
we didn't
yeah,
want anything to do with it because we were looking at longevity in the business. We were saying we were family men, and
yeah,
we worked for a company. I don't know if they're still in existence, Luminar Leisure. And we got tasked with
yeah.
going to different clubs in the area to get rid of door teams that were being naughty. That was one of our areas of expertise.
So, so guys that had gone a bit like they'd gone rogue and they were pretty much handling the
But
dealing in the
yeah,
clubs. They were
yeah.
being moved on.
And
So, how long were you doing the door
I
for, Chris?
that was 95 until I went to Haiti in 2002. So I was doing it pretty much most nights of the week.
That's a feral stretch, isn't it? So, Haiti. So, tell us
Well,
about
yeah,
that.
that was
How
that
did that come about?
sprang from doing door work because alongside doing the door work, I was also working for a company that did maritime security in the Mediterranean. It was, believe it or not, we were providing security for the U.S. Prepositioning fleet, um, and they were based all around the Mediterranean. The money was rubbish, but the some of the ports we were in were rather pleasant. So it was a nice
Mm,
time.
I bet.
And anyway, one of the Luminara we worked for at the time, they were opening up some venues down in Devon, and I remember Martin saying to me just casually, "Do we know anyone down that way? You know, any suitable door staff?" I said, "Well, I've worked with a couple of guys on the boats." So we arranged to meet them, went down there, and they were all former Royal Marines, and they were supplying the door staff and for all the Exeter, Exmouth, all around that area. um, yeah, so while we're there chatting, one of them goes out to get a coffee, and I notice a shiny, slick brochure from Los Angeles opened up, and it looked all pretty damn sexy. People running around with guns in the sunshine. So I give Martin
Yeah,
a nudge. He said, "Well, that looks all right." So we asked him about it, and they said, "Were you interested?" He
yeah,
said, "Well, yeah." He said, "Well, we set it up for people come out of services. They get their allowance, training allowance, to become close protection operatives. But you know, if you shape up and you're good enough, you can do it." So we said, "Yeah, we'll have some of that." Anyway, again, I'd say this is a bit of a convoluted story because they wanted 2.5 grand a piece to do it. So
yeah,
we went to the BBC, we were still doing the muscle thing, and said, "What do you think?" And
yeah,
Roy, I remember Roy, one of the producers, saying, "Yeah, I can see it now. You and Martin walking out of a club after a rough night, out of the darkness into the sunlight, the street life playing in the background." And we were going, "Yeah, all right, but can we do it?" He said, "Oh, yeah, but you're going to have to pay. You're going to have to pay for yourself." Oh, anyway, we negotiated a deal
not
because
interested.
we convinced Airtight Security, that was the name of the company in Exeter, that this would be a good advertising vehicle for them. So we managed to get it down to $2,000 a piece, but it was still a lot of money in those days. But it still is anyway. And off we went to California, and we completed the course, had a great time. And the usual thing at the end of the course, well, if we get any work coming, we'll give you a shout. So there you are. Come back to Bristol, back on the doors, feeling a bit dejected after the dizzy heights of Los Angeles, Hollywood, and so anyway, Martin and I, we carried on meeting up for coffee. Anyway, a year goes by, nothing happens. Another year goes by. It's coming, like I say, it's coming out of 2020, 2002, something like that. Anyway, one day Martin says, coffee, 10:30, usual place. Yeah, okay, why? Just get there. Oh, all right, and I thought, hang on a minute, Anyway, I walk in, and he says, Haiti. I said, yeah. I'd been to the dentist, a previous week or something, and I remember National Geographic, plague, pestilence, riots, people getting killed, assassinations, kidnappings. I thought, that sounds like a fun place. Anyway, he said, Haiti. Yeah, what? Yeah.
Sounds perfect.
I'm going. I said, right. What is it? He said, well, Ed's out there. He's got the contract for presidential protection. Are you coming? He's got to know by midday today. So I just said, without thinking for a second, thinking about my family or anything, forgive me. I said, yeah, of course. So I go home. Mrs. was there, and she said, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "You're not getting in trouble again, are you?" I said, "No, I've got a job." She said, "Well, that's good, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah, but it's in Haiti." She said, "I'm not going to Haiti. I can't go." I said, "It's not the sort of place you take your wife." She said, "Oh, right." And I explained to her what it was all about. She said, "Well, if you got to do it, you got to do it." So I did it.
So, Haiti, describe it. So I presume you Martin flew out there.
I mean, just for a second. Before me.
Yeah. So can you paint a picture of Martin? Because I've met Martin back in the 90s. So
6'3", big build, East Ender, never lost any of his accent. Allegedly, he mixed with the certain individuals that were quite famous in that time in the 60s in East End of London.
Was he a Bethnal Green boy then? Was he a Bethnal Green boy?
Yeah, he was that way, yeah.
That area, yeah.
Yeah, he and I, we got on really well. Anyway, he's already out there. I arrived, and I'll never forget it, flying into Port-au-Prince Airport with low-rise buildings, with troops in sangers on the rooftops. And when I say a fire cart, I mean a fire cart on the tarmac. Handheld with the big wooden wheels.
Wheels.
I mean, there was a canvas hose. I don't know how. I mean, I could see it in the distance, and when I got close, it didn't look like it could put anything out. And a bucket of water, and that was it.
Slightly perished in the sunlight.
And a guy in a sort of like a warehouseman's brownie coloured coat. Anyway, it turned out that the troops that surrounded were actual police, because the military had been disbanded in Haiti, because they were the ones that were the rebels. In fact, that they were known as the FAD, former Army de Haiti. They were the FAD, the enemy, as it were. Anyway, I got off the plane, and the first thing that hits you is the heat. Instantly
Like a
wet,
dry heat, or what
humid.
sort of heat is it?
Your
Oh,
shirt
it's like
clings to you,
tropical.
soaked, and walked across the tarmac, and there's a little
Yeah,
band playing to greet us. I remember they were dressed in sort of traditional clothing, and then into the melee of the airport itself, arrivals.
yeah,
Um, I was lucky because um, there was the only people on the flight were either Haitians, American missionaries who didn't look like me,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially, I imagine you stood out
and
somewhat.
a woman from subsequently found out she's from Protocol, the government office. She
Yeah,
came towards me, picked me up, or sorry, got hold of me and took me into a private VIP room and started feeding me coffee and said, "It's okay, your friends
yeah,
will be here and pick you up." And that was it. And then we come out of the airport, and there's like a green and white canopy with hundreds of people under it, and they just come every day because they got nothing else to do, just to see who's getting off of airplanes. Yeah,
really.
and I'll never forget. We drove out of there, and it's just a total sensory overload. The smells, donkeys braying, horns honking. The it's just overwhelming from somebody who's come from a civilized sort of. The roads aren't made up. There's open sewers running down the sides of, in and on the sides of the roads, and just people everywhere. And it was just sheer chaos. And a little township, squatter type township, had set up around the airport, and it was that was my introduction to Haiti. Oh,
So
Ed
I know
was
that
in the
you.
car with Martin, and he says, "Oh, the toys on the floor are yours. They're hot." In other words, they got one at the spout ready to. Oh, you got to just pull the trigger, and
Yeah.
that was a Glock 19 and I was given an Uzi 9 millimeter.
Oh, Uzi 9
Yeah,
millimeter. I'll be back. So I know you cover quite a lot of your experience in Haiti in your first book, Call Sign Chopper. So I don't want you to give away too much about the content of the book, because if anybody wants to make a purchase, but were there many hair-raising moments when you were there?
daily.
Oh, really? Was it that? Was it that bad? Tell us about the bit. I know there's a mass riot. I don't want to give that away. The bit about the
Oh
tire
yeah,
wall
yeah,
burning. That's the
yeah,
bit that
yeah.
got my attention.
I was driving up into Port-au-Prince one day, and you could see a pole of smoke. And I come around the corner, and there's a stack. I knew it was, you could see that flames are going up high, but a stack of tires. And as I got closer, I could see feet sticking out of the tires, bent at the knee, and they were wearing boots. So I, that's all I can remember. So you just throttle down and get past it.
But
Oh,
around
you're
it,
part
through
of
it,
it.
how did you
But yeah,
navigate that? Turn around, get out of the way?
negotiating burning
Yeah.
barricades is quite a regular feature there. And
Oh, so it's
yeah, yeah.
almost expected then.
Quite often you just power through because it, it you have to make judgments quickly because I remember as you approach a burning barricade. And this one, yeah, this one was where they had the feet sticking out. There's other cars trying to reverse, do a 3-point turn in the dirt track, which is the main Rue Pan American. They were getting overwhelmed by the mobs, and people were getting dragged out and beaten. So you have to make a decision a
Yeah.
bit quick. And I was in a 4-wheel drive, and I just blasted through.
Get through. What sort of cars were you
Four-wheel
on? So
drive.
forward drive, like quite big. Was it
My
Landy or was it?
mine was the one I was. Well, we had different cars. The second time I had Terracons, but the first time, oh crikey, what the Shoguns? Shoguns. Yeah,
Mitsubishi
Mitsubishi
Shoguns. Yeah.
Shoguns.
Were they called Pajeros
Pajeros,
over
that's
there
the
as
one.
well? It's
Pajeros.
Pajero.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Are they
Yeah.
the same or different? I can't remember.
Yeah, same thing. Because when I was with the UN in Cyprus, we
Yeah,
had Pajeros,
Pagero.
exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
Probably the
that's the
same
one.
sort of models.
Yeah.
Pajero, wasn't it? Pajero. I think it's the Spanish, but I think Pajero or Pajero is Spanish for wanker, I believe. I don't know how true that is. We'll find out. So, any Spanish listeners, let us know if that's true. So, Haiti, so you obviously survived it, and you've had a few hairy moments over there. So, coming back, continue with the bodyguard work. What was your sort of
Well,
moment after
look
that?
at what the hell do I do now? So guess what? Back on the doors.
Really? So you went back on, and by this time everyone was badged. I'm assuming you were badged yourself. Were you still at the same level
Yeah,
you
I
were
was
doing?
still did just doing. No, hang on a minute. Let me think. Were we were still operating on council licenses then? I think. I don't think it was to about 2008, was it? The actual SIA.
I think it was coming out
Oh
sooner than
well,
that, but I don't know
whatever.
whether it was
But yeah,
enforced in
I
the
was
same
still
way.
doing door work. I was doing a bit of building labouring, anything I could pick up, and the it was about this time that the maritime company was that I worked doing the Mediterranean prepositioning. They were starting to get active in anti-piracy, which was picking up over in off of Somalia.
Oh, do tell
Yeah,
us
so I
about
got
that.
involved in a bit of that, and basically that was my second. Oh no, I went back to Haiti after that.
Oh, did you? So when
Yeah.
you're back to Haiti, you mentioned we've spoken in the past that you did a little bit of
Oh
time in
yeah,
Haiti.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was the
A
second
little
time.
bit, a
Yeah.
little nugget.
Well, before that, I did a little bit of time in the Ukraine as well.
Oh, that would have been tough. How would?
Yeah, oh
So can
yeah,
you say
yeah.
what that was
Only
for?
18 hours.
In my terms, that's a shit and a shave, mate.
Yeah, yeah. What happened? What happened was, to quote Jethro, um, the
Yeah.
maritime company I was working for, they had a regional manager, a countrywide regional manager, and if he went to certain places, they wanted him to have not exactly security, but escort company, really. And
Yeah.
I was, where was I? I think I was in Naples or somewhere like that. And they said, "Oh, do you want to look after Jack for a couple of days?" I said, "Yeah, that'd be great," because I knew him. We'd already worked together before, and we got on well. So I, instead of coming home, I flew from Naples to Istanbul to meet to meet Jack, because we were then going on to Odessa. So met him that evening. Next morning, get up, go to the airport, all the formalities, get on the plane, and we fly to Odessa. Having a pleasant little chat, nothing very nice. It was snowing heavily. I remember it snowing heavily. We flew into the airport in Odessa, and we're on the tarmac, and just sat there. And I sort of looked around, and it's obviously we're the only two Western type. You can tell facially, can't you? We were the only two Westerners on the
Yeah.
plane. Anyway, the immigration officers board, and they look more like military with sidearms. And they start coming.
Yeah.
We're towards the back of the plane. They start checking everybody's passport, and I had that sixth sense that something ain't quite right here. They
Yeah.
approach us, so I offer my passport. He studies it very closely, calls his mate over. They ask for Jack's passport. They study his as well. He then tucks our passports in his top pocket, pulls out his handgun. Obviously, English and Ukrainian, we didn't understand each other, but we understood enough that we had to go with them.
Yeah. Universal language. Gun
Yeah,
pointed at you.
and
Do
he
as he
had his
says.
finger on the trigger as well, which wasn't a very good safety practice. But anyway, so
Oh
we went.
no. Trigger discipline.
And
poor.
we were then put in well, I guess it's a small prison-type truck and taken to some cells within the main building. And there I languished. We were in separate cells. They didn't take anything off us. Just sat in the bloody cell, nothing to eat, drink, not even a sip of water. And eventually, after about 6 hours, I get taken into an interview room. And opposite me is sat a little guy, unshaven, big moustache, wearing a shell suit and like a Peaky Blinder type hat. Yeah.
What a combo.
And he says, I speak English. I said, oh, good. Can you tell me what the hell's going on, please? He said, you have committed visa violation. I said, what? You have committed visa violation. And he explained to me that the stamp in my passport, the exit stamp, should be completely circular. With a crescent inside it.
Was a bit
it
of print
should be
missing.
Completely circular.
Yeah.
But half of it hadn't come out. So I had a semi-circular stamp.
So it dabbed it on the thing properly.
I said, well, how am I supposed to know that? They stamped it. He said, do not get nasty. I said, oh, yeah. He said, you should have checked. I said, how can I? Anyway, he then says, I will represent you. Oh, great. I was really full of confidence. And so he started completing this paperwork, smoking and blowing smoke in my face, and I was dragged. Anyway, I'm put back in the cell. Again, I can't remember how many hours later. But in total, it was 18 hours we were there, not fed, nothing.
Nothing at all.
Toilet
facilities, nothing.
And anyway, I then returned to the interview room. Jack then arrives with another guard, and we're told we can go. So we're escorted out into the main hall where we collected our bags. And I said, "What's going on, Jack? What's happened with you?" He said, "It's all right. I'll tell you later." Anyway, we get outside, find a taxi, and we head to the Hotel Frappoli, which is supposed to be the best hotel in Odessa, but I wouldn't vouch for best hotel. Anyway, that's another story. But anyway, what had happened is, because of he also had the visa violation, he had to phone the company and they had to get 600 euros each to get us out. So 1,200 euros has got us released.
Okay.
That solved
so it's your bail, basically,
problem,
in a sense. So just because someone hadn't stamped their stamp in the ink and punched it properly and that was it. Yeah. That cost 1,200 euros.
Oh, I've had some nice times in airports.
Yeah. So tell us about shooting pirates then on the maritime. A lot of people in the forces do that. They get on the big boats. I know it's changed a lot now. You see it on YouTube, the skiffs coming up and the little boats. Is it like that? Is that what you're seeing, or is it a lot of staggering on and sleeping?
You hit it on the head. 6-hour watches. Well, it varied depending which ships you're on. Some were 4-hour watches, some were 6-hour watches, continuous throughout the whole time you were on ship. And one bit of Indian Ocean, then I felt like another bit of Indian Ocean after you've been staring at it for the last 4 hours. And my experience was, I don't know if I've seen some allegedly skiffs come screaming in. Well, my experience was they don't. They just lie in wait, and they will use subterfuge. Yeah. They'll wave empty water bottles, or they'll hold up a placard with refugee, hungry, and things like that on it, so that when they get close, they then drop that and produce the AK-47s, and then attempt to board.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes
because
more
by
sense, doesn't
racing
it?
in, they're giving away their intention. So
Yeah, and
yeah, that was my experience, and that's what happened more often than not. Yeah, we had one or two encounters.
yeah,
I'll never forget the very first encounter I had. I was in charge of a group of Gurkhas on a ship, and we had a low freeboard, which meant we weren't too high off the water. And a skiff had been
yeah,
trailing us, and I got fed up with it. So I thought, right, I'm going to speak to these. So I go to the stern, lean over, and I use the immortal two words that are internationally understood and said with the right amount of vigor and venom, those immortal words, fuck off!
yeah.
And
Did
there was
they?
five on the skiff, four youngish lads and one older man. And he looks up and he says, American, American. I said, no, I'm British now, fuck off. He went, oh, British, British,
Yeah.
you trained me, we won't take you. So he turned and they put the Turkish ship behind us.
So the fuck off for new works then
Yeah.
usually. So did you ever have to, when you're on there, did it give you a chance to do any range practice,
Oh,
weapons
yeah.
testing?
Oh, crikey,
How
yeah.
does that work?
It usually consisted of, we did our weapons drill, dry weapons drills, and then we'd have a live fire. And it generally consisted of one of the crewmen throwing cardboard boxes overside and us blasting them to bits. That was the practice.
Fun? Unload a whole map. What weapons were you
Mossberg,
issued?
shotguns, pump action shotguns, and Remington shotguns. That's what we had. With slug as opposed
Yeah.
to grain. Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
get a
yeah,
bit of
yeah.
distance on it then, not
Yeah,
too much.
I think, but they were
Yeah.
5 rounds, one in the breech and four in the chain, or four in the chamber. Is that right? I can't remember. Oh,
Bit of a
crikey,
kick on
yeah,
it
well,
then.
the thump in the shoulder. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there was one night when we had to do it for real, and that was really strange, out of the ordinary. Without telling the whole story because it's in book two, but basically it was a nighttime attack, and which was highly unusual because all pirate activity that we were aware of had been in daylight. But this particular night, we'd gone to bed, woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was brilliant moon. It was a full moon, and it just
Yeah.
seemed to shine really bright. And the skiff had been dogging us for about 45 minutes. So we got to stand to.
Yeah.
Anyway, and a very condensed version is we gave it a warning shot. They responded with uh, automatic fire, and that was it. Yeah,
And you were
that
loaded.
was that gave us
No,
to go.
change mag. Change mag again. Wow. So looking at all the different things you've done so far, so we've got time in the police force. You've been door work, bodyguard, the president of Haiti, maritime. Which one of those different sort of roles would you say you've
Well,
enjoyed the most?
without a doubt, Haiti was, I mean, that is just such an experience to be out there. That was amazing. I mean, the second time I was out there, I worked for a cell phone company, which may sound a little bit tame compared to bodyguard and the president, but the shops were regularly getting shot up, the gangs trying to overtake them, and also I got involved with a group of men out there who wanted to do good, men of good intent.
Yes.
And suffice to say, I don't know what you know about Haiti, but kidnapping is, or it was, it probably still is one of the main cottage industries, if you like. And how bad these bastards were was a couple of teenage twins, female, got kidnapped, and the parents paid the ransom. The kidnappers returned the twins. One was dead, the other was gang raped.
Oh my
And
God.
as a result of that,
Jesus.
we realized we had to do certain things.
That's just it's unfathomable, isn't it? To think about unfathomable, to think about how that can happen. But the human life just holds such little value in some parts of the world, doesn't it?
It's horrible. Beyond description. But it's things like that you just think, like I say,
so
we had a group of local businessmen who decided that we had to do something about it, and myself and Corwin. Corwin, he's an interesting character. He died suddenly. A number of people died suddenly after we left Haiti, but he
suddenly, as in not necessarily natural causes.
Never established that. Some were obviously just gunned down, but all I know is that he died suddenly. But he was, when we worked for the president, I met him on that job. He was a former U.S. cop, and he confided in me and took me to meetings with members of the Drugs Enforcement Agency from the USA who were operating out of the embassy in Haiti. And basically, he was an agent. He'd been embedded with the president's team because, as it turned out, Aristide, the president, was involved in with Escobar. They were channeling cocaine into Miami. And for all we know, we may have even performed security for Escobar, unwittingly.
Wow, wow. Well, I've never met Escobar, but I've certainly probably enhanced his profits back in the early days. So looking at all the things you've been involved in and coming through now, so let's bring the clock forward a little bit. This is about being through adversity, isn't it? About telling the story about the difficult things you face. And a couple of years ago, I remember us having a coffee, and you said there's something else, a new battle that you're dealing with, and that was a diagnosis, wasn't it?
Yes, I got diagnosed with Non-Hodkin's lymphoma, which is a cancer, and when I was out in Haiti the first time, I contracted Helicobacter, which is a gut intestinal parasite thing. I'm allergic to amoxicillin. So when I went to the doctors about it, they gave me the alternative medication. And I remember the doctor glibly saying, "Oh, we need to sort this out. It's potentially cancerous." Oh yeah, okay, yeah, crack on. Anyway, I had 3 eradications over a 6-month period and got rid of it. But lo and behold, 20 years later, lymphoma.
Here it is. Wow.
And then on top of that,
I remember,
from being out in hot countries, melanoma.
As well as
years later.
bloody hell.
And recently, I've had a couple more melanoma cut off my left arm. But I'm still here, still vertical, and still complaining.
Well, that's your given right. So looking at all the things that could have killed you, and I know I spoke to Dad, obviously not recently, but I spoke to Dad, and he said all the things that should have killed him didn't kill him, and in the end, he just gets taken out by some natural cause. And like yourself, you don't expect to live to the point where someone's going to get you naturally, do you?
Again, just reflecting back, the situation I've been in, people getting shot dead in front of me, and if there'd been a degree or two of variation on that aim, it would have been me who got it. I was a lucky bastard, and I still am. And it's my problem with the cancer is how do you fight it? It's out of my control. I have to rely on other people. And I remember the nurses in their combat scrubs surrounding me, fighting my war internally.
How does that feel?
How does it feel?
To have that, not be able to be in control of your own, like you say, your own sort of danger.
Every time I went for my chemotherapy, immunotherapy treatment, I felt safe. I was glad to be there because I knew there's nothing I could do about it. I had to hand total responsibility to them. and I would sit there, the needle would go in, the cannula, the cold rush, and I'd just go into like a Zen state and just sit and meditate until it was time to go. And I got vague memories of a bit of music playing somewhere and people moving around, and every now and then someone coming in, but there's nothing you can do. You just got to submit.
I guess so. Yeah, like you say, you can handle yourself in a hostile environment, but can you handle yourself in a hospital?
Myself there in the hostile environment. I can run away. I can hide. I can fight. I can duck. I've got all those options. But when you get something like that, you have no option. Well, you do nothing.
No.
I remember when I was first when I first saw the consultant. Well, what are we going to do? And he laid out various different options. And I said, which was the most effective? And he said the RCHOP regime, which that's the acronym for the treatment I had. And that ranged from experimental to that, and doing nothing, watching weight, and praying basically. And I said, what's the most effective? And they said the RCHOP. I said, let's do it then. And that was it.
So, are you in a good place now?
No, seriously, I don't. Yeah.
I'll let you know. So let's talk about. So you've got yourself a couple of books out.
Yeah.
Call Sign Chopper, the sequel. So we actually run ours are mirrored, aren't they? We released both our books around about the same sort of time because we've got the same publisher, Mr. Mr. Cool Paper. I call him Mr. Cool Paper. And if anyone's interested in getting a book on the go, it's called Mr. Book Coach. He's a great publisher. He really looks after you. So tell us about your journey through the books, then, Chris. How was that? What you clearly got a story to tell.
I mean, initially, when I went to Haiti, I had to have an email address. And bearing in mind this is 2002, whatever it was, I didn't know what the hell an email address was. Anyway.
Well, you couldn't work. You couldn't even work your laptop out yesterday.
Exactly. I haven't changed. Anyway, I had a next door neighbour, and they had a 9-year-old son, Will, and I went round to see them, and he did it all for me. The wonders of technology.
Yeah.
I was introduced to then, so I started firing out these little messages to friends and family about what had been happening, the scrapes I'd had, and after a while, Haiti and everywhere else I'd been, I built up quite a portfolio of stories, and people were saying, "Oh, you need to get this down in a book." I said, "No." And then I sort of thought about it. When I hit 70, I thought, "Yeah, let's do this." So I just wanted to do a manuscript, so it'd be a legacy from the kids and grandkids and heirs and successors to see what a silly old sod I had been.
Yeah.
And so I just started putting things together, and then I bumped into Mr. Culpepper, and he said, "Well, we got to do this properly," so that's what I did.
Yeah, so you got 2 books out. So where can we find them, Chris?
Usual places, Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all the rest of them on the internet.
So all over.
Yeah, I think that's where you. Yeah, that's
so
where
if
you
anybody
find them. But I've also had another strange thing happen to me. I started spouting poetry.
Okay, so is that something as a cathartic experience to? It's not as long as a book, is it? So have you got any poetry with you?
I have actually. I've only written 5 poems, and they're all about things that about me basically. And what I'm thinking of doing is getting a little pamphlet together with an introduction to each poem. But I've got a few. But I wrote the first 3. One was about being in the police. Another one, the order was all ass about face, because the one about being an old-time bouncer I wrote last week. But it's all convoluted. But I wrote about each phase of my life, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Are you
I
going to do
don't
any
know,
more? Are
because the
you going to
problem is
sort of
I've been to
expand
some
on
of
that
these
at all?
groups where they, try and get you to be creative writing. But my problem is I'm a reporter. People tell you need to write a novel.
Yeah,
I ain't got the imagination. All I can write about is what I've done. And when I think about it,
yeah.
yeah,
Factual
what I
stuff.
think about it, that's true. All I've done is like when I was in the police, I wrote reports. In the military, you have to write reports. And so again, I just wrote reports. Like I said, the little messages send out about what's happened, put it all together, and that was my story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say I've written a couple of little poems. Hang on, what would you like to hear? The latest one,
Yeah, do the latest one about a
the
door.
door one. That was. Oh, I'll tell you what. I'll do. I'll give you. Can I give you the one I wrote a few days ago? This is
Yes.
about walking, because again, it also occurred to me that what I've done, I've been paid to walk. Policemen on the beat, in the military, infantry, stuff like that. You walk, don't you? You're getting paid to walk. And I now spend a lot of
Yeah.
time walking. I I live on a coastal path, so I put my backpack on, flask of tea, and off I go on the coastal path. And it came to me. I was over in Wales as well, and the famous Dylan Thomas was on a program on Welsh television. I don't know if you've ever know anything about Dylan Thomas. Well, he's written some
No.
amazing poems, but a lot of what stuff is very difficult to
Yeah.
understand. But anyway, I got inspired
Yeah.
by him and and the walking, and this one just came to me, and I had this down within an hour, and this is like I can spend days trying to think of something to write about, but it don't happen. But when it does happen, it comes quick,
Yeah.
and this is entitled "I
Yeah.
Walk." I walk because I can. I walk for a living as a youth and as a man. Policeman on the beat, a military man. Now I am an old man. I walk because I can. Old mates I walk with are gone, disappeared into the ether at the end of their lifespan. I walk towards my destiny, the dying of the light. But inspired by Dylan Thomas, I rage against that good night. I walk alone, no heavy pack or gun. I recall my younger days walking out into the sun with brave mates around me. But now, am I the only one? I walk with the sun behind me, walking into that good night. I force myself, breathing hard. My legs ache. It feels good, pushing back that fading light. I walk for fitness and to keep my head screwed on. I walk to honor all my mates, no longer living, but now gone.
That's good, Chris. That is quite meaningful as well, isn't it? Because it does show that as you get older, you begin to realise that how many of us are
Yeah,
left. Keep on pushing.
yeah. Well, a mate of mine said, if I had to predict who was going to write poetry in old age, it wouldn't have been me.
No, not at all. Not at all. So, apart from poetry, being an author, recovering with potential cancer diagnosis, what are you
Well,
doing with
I
yourself now?
still work a bit for a private ambulance company. We provide pitchside ambulance crew at Ashton Gate for the Bristol City football and the Bristol Bears rugby. So I do that on a casual basis and occasional little patient transports, and that's about it. That keeps me going. But apart from that, I continue to do my fitness and strength training, and just like I say, keep pushing back that good night. Hopefully,
Yeah, because the minute you stop, it'll. Yeah, that's it. The minute you stop,
yeah.
it'll win, won't it? It'll win. Yeah. Well, look, Chris, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Through Adversity. If anyone has enjoyed what they've seen and they like Chris's story, don't forget to check out his books on Amazon. Call Sign Chopper, Call
I,
Sign
I,
Chopper, the
I, I,
sequel. Chris, do you ever do
yeah,
signed copies,
yeah,
Chris? Oh, there we go. Both the books. So Call Sign Chopper
yeah.
on the left,
Very
sequel
quickly,
on the right.
why call sign Chopper?
Yes, yes.
After a
Tell us.
particularly vicious punch up outside of the Steam Rock nightclub in Bristol, King Street. We chased off a little gang of hooligans, and as I'm walking back towards the front door, I'm looking down it on the floor, all the rubble and detritus is lying there, and I spy this little spark, a little glimmer, and I bend down and pick it up, and it's a little axe. I thought, I'll have that. That'll be good. That'll come in handy for camping. And then when I got the call to go to Haiti, I thought I'll take the axe with me because that'll fit just inside my tack vest, which it did. So when it came to call signs, they were, you know, the Americans were Thor and all the rest of it, and Valhalla. And I said, I'll be Chopper.
Perfect. Brilliant story. So Chris, thanks for joining me, and everyone else, thanks for joining us. If you hit the like button, subscribe and comment, and we'll be back again with another episode of Through Adversity. And thanks to the sponsor, MVS Autos, based in Warmley, Bristol.
Thank you.
Thank you.